Good evening and welcome to City Council for the City of Gahanna, our Monday, April 18th, 2022. Please join me for the invocation that Pledge Allegiance, led by Ms. Bowers.
Let us rise each morning and strive each day to do only that which brings happiness and joy to others, and avoid doing things that cause others hurt and pain. Let us use our minds and our reason to foster behavior based on the mutuality and reciprocity inherent in human relationships. And let us always respect the dignity and worth of each other. And let us, above all, love one another, not to obtain rewards for ourselves now or hereafter, or to avoid punishment, but rather always to bring each other contentment and peace. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Clerk, can you please call our roll?
Angelou,
Yes.
Bowers,
Here.
McGregor,
Here.
Padova,
Here.
Renner,
Here.
Schnetzer,
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
All right, thank you. Item B, additions or corrections to our agenda. Do we have any? Okay, hearing none. Item C, hearing of visitors. I don't have any speaker slips, but Mayor, you have proclamations.
I do. I have two, and I do apologize because it's my rule, the rule at least I've implemented, that I would do one proclamation per regular council meeting. However, I was not here 2 weeks ago, and it intended to present a proclamation 2 weeks ago, so we have two this evening. So I do apologize and beg your indulgence briefly. The first proclamation that I have is for Autism Acceptance Month, and I have the Harshaw family here, so I'd like to invite them up to the podium. I think many of you may already know or have met the Harshaw family. Today we have Jean and Gwendolyn and their son Zane. If you've been to the Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival, for sure you have seen this gentleman here. He has really grown into become a phenomenal blues guitarist, playing all across the country. And I'm pretty sure it was your first time on stage at the Blues and Jazz Festival.
Back then, I think I started my first. I played there first in 2016 with another band. And plus, I don't play this because I play all kinds of blues.
He does love the blues.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I don't know how many of you are aware of this. Jean and Gwen, from the time Zane was first diagnosed, I think when he was 4 years old, around that, so more than 20 years.
Yeah. Yes.
Have really been tireless advocates for families impacted by autism, speaking around the country, advocating for families, trying to generate awareness around that, trying to generate opportunities for community involvement, etc. Their advocacy actually led Gwen to accept the role as program director for OCALI, which is, I want to make sure I get it right, the Ohio Center, you say it.
For Autism and Low Incidence, which refers to low incidence disabilities. We actually serve all disabilities.
And in that role, part of your responsibility is to generate opportunities for community involvement for families impacted by autism, to create situations that are sensory friendly, etc. As a result of that role, these guys took a trip to Pittsburgh,
Yes.
met with a nonprofit organization there called Band Together. You want to talk a little bit about what that was?
Sure. It seems like it's been meant to be. Music has been such an inspirational change for our family. It has basically opened up so many doors. And I've often wanted to expand that for other individuals with autism or other disabilities. And when we first started and he expressed the interest in playing the guitar, we ended up going to open mics. Well, open mics tend to be in bars. And he was underage at the time. And we often wanted to come up with something that was family friendly. So I have wanted to do it for years, could never quite put things together. Then we met the individuals in Pittsburgh, Band Together. They are an extension of the Autism Society of Pittsburgh, and they have a program that's been going on almost 5 years where it's a monthly autism-friendly open mic. And the purpose, of course, music is the foundation, but the purpose is socialization and connection, which is so hard to achieve for individuals with autism. So we've been wanting to form that. Now that I work at Ocala, and I have a partnership with the Autism Society of Central Ohio, as well as support from the Gahanna Foundation, John Spinelli, and the Gahanna Sanctuary, we're going to start our own band together, Central Ohio, here in Gahanna, starting August 14th. It'll be every Sunday, the second Sunday of every month, at the Gahanna Sanctuary, and we are just thrilled to get that started.
Yeah, we had, what was interesting was we actually had, this is in December, in cold December, the executive director for the Autism Society of Pittsburgh, along with one of the founders of Band Together Pittsburgh, actually came to Gahanna to see the site and meet all the stakeholders, and they thought the place where we'll have the location was perfect, and they've been in our corner. They've allowed us to have use of their trademarked logo. It'll be Band Together Central Ohio, but it was very, very important to us that the birth of it was in Gahanna. We had a couple stakeholders that expressed another location, another city, another suburb. We're like, absolutely not. It's going to be right here in our hometown, particularly when Zane's been here since he's 4. And it's like he's grown up with the Gahanna Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival. So it just seemed absolutely right for it to be here. So we're just absolutely excited about it. We've already got a lot of interest, funding from the Gahanna Foundation as well as the Autism Society of Central Ohio. So it's going to be exciting.
And we expect to expand it, possibly even nationally, but it's going to start right here in Gahanna.
So for that reason, it's my honor to belatedly present to you this proclamation declaring the month of April Autism Acceptance Month, and to thank you and urge Gahanna citizens to join all of us in recognizing your efforts on behalf of families impacted by autism. You're doing incredible work, and we are just thrilled that you are doing that right here in the city of Gahanna. So thank you very much. There we go. Okay. We really, truly have incredible residents here in the city. I think a number of them come here all the time, and we talk to and about them with the work that they're doing. But there's another young family here, and I would like them to come forward as well. You might see the banner, Mrs. Ohio International. Megan and her husband, John. Zahner, or is it Whiting? Okay. Your email threw me for a minute. I'm like, I thought it was Whiting. So, incredible story of the work that these two are doing. Family fraught with infertility challenges around that, and in going through that discovered the difficulties that individuals and families have with having family building journeys. The cost of it, the access to assistance with that, and I'm telling your story, but you can tell it here.
Yes, just the equitable access to family building, and just the cost barrier. The cost is the number one barrier for families to grow. And so, with National Infertility Awareness Week beginning next week, it's a week dedicated to raising awareness and starting the conversation around what infertility means and what infertility looks like, because it's different for every family, and every journey is different. So just having that conversation and just bringing awareness to that week is important to the work that my husband and I are doing. And just this past March, we just launched our nonprofit, the Pursuit of Rainbows Foundation, and that nonprofit will be distributing fertility grants to couples who apply. So we have our first fundraiser this week. If you're at Easton at the Kendra Scott store, stop by. We're doing a Shop for Good event with them, but hoping to start distributing grants this fall.
So again, thank you for your work. I know many families who have been afflicted by this and have had the challenge. In fact, I've had it in my own family and watched my cousins go through this, and the financial drain, the emotional drain is It's just unbelievable. So I commend you for what you're doing. I think we all do. So thank you very much. And with that, it is my honor to declare next week, the week of April 24th through the 30th, as National Infertility Awareness Week. Council, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I see in our audience that we have a guest, State Representative Mary Lightbody. It is our custom that any elected official that we see in our audience, we invite up to the podium to speak.
Good evening, and thank you very much, President Renner and Mayor Jadwin, whom I see all the time at ribbon cuttings, and the rest of the members of the City Council. Please let me commend the Gahanna City Council for your efforts to bring attention to Earth Day and to commit to environmental action through your draft resolution that I understand will be debated this evening, perhaps. Earth Day 2022's theme is Invest in Our Planet. It's a call to action for individuals, communities, businesses, and governments to take action now to protect our environment and ourselves. And I want to congratulate you for some of the work that you're doing and explain about some of the work that I'm doing in honor of Earth Day. So I congratulate you for recent actions to add more land to excellent Park and Rec Division, to prioritize environmental policies that promote sustainability, and to enhance the quality of life for all Ohioans clever enough to live and or work here in Gahanna. Because I drive an all-electric car, I am doubly pleased to see charging stations appearing across town, especially right outside right now because I have to charge my car before I can go home. I know that Herb Day is going to be celebrated with grand pomp and circumstance on May 7th, and I know that I missed a chance to join the spring wildflower walk in Gahanna Woods last weekend, but I'd like to encourage Gahanna residents to get a free tree here at City Hall any day next week between 9 and 5 p.m. Supplies while they last. I also plan to join you on May 14th, a day appropriately named Spring into Volunteering, to celebrate Earth Day, Arbor Day, and the arrival of spring by volunteering with the Parks Division. In the spirit of that day, I can also recommend a variety of activities that we all can do individually to make a difference in Gahanna and Central Ohio by recycling, composting, planting native trees, bushes, and flowers, weeding out invasives. For example, garlic mustard is blooming right now, but there's also autumn olive and Japanese honeysuckle, picking up trash along the streets and in the neighborhoods, putting up nesting boxes for bluebirds and bats. But to switch gears a little, I have been busy in the State House advocating for the environment as well. I was recently named the 2022 state lead for Ohio with the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators. This is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that organizes over 1,200 legislators across the country to collaborate regarding legislation to protect and conserve our environment. I'm honored to be in this role and am dedicated to making environmental policy a legislative priority. As part of my legislative work, I'd like to briefly highlight two bills that I've introduced this session, as well as other bills and initiatives that will advance environmental protections. The first is House Bill 579. This bill will expressly prohibit the surface application of brine from vertical oil and gas wells on Ohio's roads and highways, and has been assigned to the Ohio House Energy and Natural Resources Committee, of which I am a member. Ohio is one of only 10 states that permits the use of this brine as a de-icing or dust-inhibiting application by spraying it on roads and earth surfaces. The brine is brought to the surface as a waste product of oil and gas extraction from vertical wells and is hazardous because it contains the radioactive elements radium-226 and 228. Both are formed when uranium decays, are slow to degrade themselves, and are water soluble. Spreading this radioactive brine on our roads can contaminate surface water and groundwaters in Ohio and should be more safely disposed by putting it back into injection wells. A second bill, House Bill 365, the Safe Drinking Water Act, is legislation I jointly sponsored with Minority Leader Allison Russo. This bill will require the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency to establish maximum contamination levels in drinking water across Ohio for forever chemicals such as chromium-6, 1,4-dioxane, and the perfluoral and polyfluoroalkyline substances, which are called PFAS. Passing this bill would provide clear guidance to Ohio's companies on how to maintain a healthy environment while continuing to participate in a thriving economy, as well as protecting the health of Ohioans and reassuring them that a life of health, safety, and security can be lived right here at home. There are many other bills awaiting for committee or House action that will also protect our environment and the health of Ohioans, including House Bill 349 to prohibit the construction of new large animal feeding farms in northwest Ohio until harmful runoff into Lake Erie is reduced by 40%. House Bill 300 to ban oil and natural gas removal from under Lake Erie, and House Bill 429 regarding clean energy and energy justice. Last bill I'd like to mention is House Bill 175, a bill that recently passed on partisan lines that removes protection for ephemeral streams. During her testimony, OEPA Director Lori Stevenson noted the danger of dysregulating their quality. While they are not like other streams that support fish habitat, ephemeral streams are important in our watersheds because they're located at the top of the watershed and therefore can affect water quality downstream. This bill is poised to further decrease our state's water quality. I hope Governor DeWine vetoes the bill to protect fresh water in Ohio. I obviously voted no. Lastly, I'd like to talk about H2 Ohio, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Water Quality Initiative. It focuses on reducing phosphorus runoffs from agriculture, creating and restoring wetlands, and ensuring safe drinking water. H2 Ohio projects can be found across Ohio and include 82 wetland projects administered by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. In closing, I want to thank you for your dedication to Earth Day initiative and your commitment to sustainable, environmentally beneficial legislation, as well as your continued care for green spaces, trails, and parks. The city of Gahanna has blown it literally out of the water in this regard, so to speak. I truly believe it's past time to invest in our planet and that it is vital and urgent to pass legislation that will benefit the health of Ohio and citizen and its environment. And thank you for the opportunity to share all this with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item D, consent agenda. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as published?
So moved, Mr. President.
I have a first by Mr. Snetzer,
Second.
a second by Mr. Weaver. Any discussion about the consent agenda? Seeing none, Mr. Van Meter, please call the roll.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Angelou.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, item E, resolutions. We do have one. The resolution as for, it's been named. It is Resolution 0011-2022, a resolution affirming the City of Gahanna's commitment to environmental action and recognizing April 22nd, 2022 as Earth Day. Do I have a first to approve this resolution?
So moved, Mr. President.
Have a first by Mrs. Bowers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion? Actually, I do. Presidential prerogative. So I want you to bear with me. Unfortunately, I missed our council committee of the whole last week. I was really sick, laying on the floor in the bathroom when you guys were deliberating. So, but I wanted to actually talk about and maybe level set some of the things that I heard. And please understand that my frame of mind is that this is actually one of my areas of specialty, and it's especially about climate change. So, the first slide. For me, one of the greatest disappointments of our society in the 21st century is the mixture of science with political ideology. Scientific literacy among most is declining, and in its place is the marketing and Ponzi schemes of snake oil salesmen of long ago. In fact, it's been weaponized today in our polarized world of multi-million-dollar talking heads, think tanks, and others for the sole purpose of political positioning. It's wasteful, it's harmful, and overwhelmingly detrimental for the growth of our society, especially in the realms of innovation and freedom. It's distorting our view of reality and disallowing us to talk. So, climate change is real, and I'm going to talk about why it's real. The number one goal of the MORPC Regional Sustainability Agenda includes improving air quality and reducing the impacts of climate change to protect public and health and the environment. The statement is not mine, but from the MORPC model resolution that's actually before us in celebration of Earth Day, and based on simple truth, based on the scientific literature. Not recognizing the value of the power of local to address this issue is hampering our abilities to truly help and even to have frank discussion with facts. I used to actually, just a little bit of history, I used to actually give many public talks on climate change for the sole mission of just educating and increasing literacy in this regard. I speak with no political overtones. I will speak tonight with no political overtones. But I will give you facts as a scientist. I have degrees in chemistry and physics. This will not be an in-depth review, but a simple high-level summary. And so indulge me, please, as I attempt to prove a point. So let's begin with the basics. Our Earth has natural cyclical processes that maintain and sustain all the elements necessary for life to exist: water, nitrogen, and carbon. In the water cycle, it's shown in the slide, you may recall learning something about the water cycle in 3rd or 5th grade science. And it's the natural process of recycling and reclaiming water through evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, and collection. I'll get to more about this in a second. The second natural cycle that's important is the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen, which is 78% of our atmosphere, is a very stable molecule with itself. In fact, it takes the powers of lightning as well as very specialized bacteria in very specific plants to break apart and to be combined with others so that nitrogen is increasingly more complex molecules such as DNA, amino acids, and proteins, and so on. So nitrogen fixation, assimilation, ammonification, nitrification, denitrification. Nitrogen fixation is in our legumes, such as clover, and I'll get to that in a second. Carbon cycle. Everybody knows probably this one. The carbon cycle is yet another natural biochemical process whereby carbon moves through the biosphere with a simple molecule, or begins with a simple molecule, carbon dioxide, the infamous carbon dioxide, through to much more complex molecules. Carbon is the backbone of all life: DNA, amino acids, proteins, and so on. It is also the backbone of fossil fuels and biomass fuels, and plays a large role in geology in terms of slightly acidic carbonates forming calcite, magnesite, and dolomite, and other carbon containing minerals such as graphite and diamonds. These three cycles are so important that any changes in them can cause large unintended consequences in the status of life on Earth. But let's go a little tiny bit deeper. You might wonder a bit actually what governs these processes. What causes the next step to occur? And what provides the energy for all of these things to happen? What is not really seen in these simple schemes I showed you are the multitude of feedback signals and buffers within them. What are these? To put simply, feedback loops are just parts of the cycles where at the chemical level where the output of the next step is either positively or negatively reinforced. I'm not going to go any deeper than that. For example, as the water cycle, just because water evaporates or is pulled out of plants through transpiration doesn't necessarily mean that there will be condensation readily in forming of clouds. And the same with precipitation. How many hot summer days have you seen clouds but no rain? It's beyond the scope of this simple introductory, but know that there are other processes involved that feed back into the system to determine whether the cycle proceeds or not. So let's take a step back and see what we have. We have three essential and natural processes to either exchange or build upon essential nutrients, recycle and reclaim moisture, and to balance the energy of absorption. More importantly, all three deal with the land, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans, and the air. All things that are very local. Yet over time, overconsumption and pollution are threatening all three of these cycles in ways we humans never intended nor want. But you cannot solve a problem without truly recognizing you have one. We do not have the time to discuss in depth here what problems are arising with all three of these cycles, but for our resolution's purposes and to the point of celebrating Earth Day, the most important one to discuss is the carbon cycle. So let's take a look at that again. As introduced earlier, the carbon cycle is the natural process by which carbon is exchanged within the biosphere to provide the backbone of all life on Earth via the simple little molecule, carbon dioxide. Yes, this CO2, carbon dioxide, is the natural product of the accumulative respiration of life within the biosphere. It's natural. And even some of the non-life sources in the geothermal venting and volcanic activity and what have you. In fact, many scientists over time have been able to create a simple graph over time of carbon dioxide levels over the last 800,000 years. You may be wondering just how or where did this data come from, and it begins with ice cores. Ever look at your ice from the fridge and see that it looks like there's trapped air bubbles? That's the proven idea here. We know that digging through into land masses, we can take a peek at Earth's geological past. The same idea with glaciers, except we take a meter-long core at specific depths and take a peek into the Earth's polar past, including trapped air in these cores. Oh, and by the way, this data has been corroborated with data from our understanding both of geology and, to a certain extent, of fossils, the fossil record, including tree ring studies of ancient trees. One of the items I wanted to point out in this core sample is, notice the brown thin layer on this sample. That is a point of 21,000 years ago when we had major volcanic activity. The ash went around the Earth and it settled down at the polar. Sorry. If you aren't aware, the philosophy of science is always to disprove. A fun exercise with students that I have all the time. The goal of science is never to set out that you're going to prove a concept, but try to eliminate other inferences in your investigations. So the graph shows a cyclical pattern. If we go back to this 800,000 year, I want you to take a really hard look at this. It shows a cyclical pattern which we expect with the carbon cycle. It goes up and it goes back down. We are continually measuring the CO2 levels in our atmosphere at 5 locations around the world today. CO2 is increasing in our atmosphere. There is no doubt, none. At today's current levels, it's 417 ppms. I'll get to that in a second. Where is this relatively new source of CO2? Well, let's return back to the carbon cycle. Through careful analysis of the carbon, it appears that the source of additional CO2 is coming from, in largest part, through the burning of fossil fuels. Why can we say that? Simple high school chemistry shows us that efficient, complete burning of a hydrocarbon yields just 2 products, CO2 and water. For every pound of coal burned, a little bit more than 2, it's 2.07 pounds of CO2 is released. Here's the real mind-blowing number you probably want. For every gallon of gas burned, this equation shows us that roughly 20 pounds of CO2 will be released. Take that in for a second. It was estimated in 2019 that human activities released nearly 16 gigatons of CO2 in our atmosphere. And as I'll show, that 16 gigatons is outside what the current carbon cycle can actually, it's the diagram there. In your natural carbon, the carbon cycle, the 16 gigatons is outside of what the normal carbon cycle can actually take in. It does not take anyone long to look up online just how much coal, oil, and gas is consumed. Nearly all these products are burned to capture the energy within the chemical bonds of hydrocarbons for energy. Who can blame them? This energy is to power our trucks, our cars, ships, airplanes, industrial processes such as for steel, aluminum, and many others. However, there are newer technologies that provide hope that do not burn hydrocarbons, but these are not yet fully in deploy. And in fact, once upon a time, I did meet with City Hall years ago about using one of those new properties here at the Bedford landfill. Westerville was actually, they had a, being aphasic at the moment, but they had a device that actually will take in hydrocarbons and through a catalytic process generate electricity. They were actually wanting to sell that device, and I was trying to actually see if we could move it to Bedford landfill, which is still pushing out methane underground. That didn't work. You may want to talk to William Murdoch. He was there. Becky Stinchcombe was there, and Sadiqa White was there. And yes, the burning of biomass products such as wood and grass actually follows the same chemistry. You're putting CO2 in the atmosphere. So just what is the CO2 we are adding to the atmosphere doing? Plenty. Overall, the best tested model is the greenhouse effect. And let me take a step back. That is the warming of the Earth's atmosphere by the trapping the sun's rays by the CO2. The Earth's nearest neighbor, Venus, is a classic example of a runaway greenhouse effect with temperatures high enough to melt our best alloys due to its long history of volcanic activities and never able to rid itself of the CO2 produced, trapping in its own atmosphere. While that's a model, we know that the Earth is a little bit more complex than that. And thank you, it is. In the temperature diagram, we see that the rate of change from normal appears to be increasing. That's worrisome. This is facts. Just how much more CO2 do we need in the Earth's atmosphere to cause a similar event here? To be honest, we really don't know. But here are the facts that we do know. CO2 is rising every year. The last time our Earth saw levels of CO2 this high, at 417 ppm, there were dinosaurs walking around on our planet. That's a fact. I'm not suggesting that we can incubate a Jurassic Age here, but it's a reference point all the same. We know that global temperature anomaly is increasing, and we also know that it's not due to solar radiation. As you can see from the graph there, it charted over time in power absorbed from the sun versus the temperature going up. And you can see that solar radiation sort of waxes and wanes, and we know that by the solar maximum and minimum, but it's actually on a downward trend, which is a little worrisome too. So, unlike Venus, Earth has a very rich biosphere that has been absorbing some of the extra CO2 produced by humans, delaying any real intensive heating. The surface of the Earth is 71% oceans, and thus the oceans have been acting as a buffer. It's a buffer free of CO2, and it's been absorbing a lot of heat. One problem, however, as any good chemistry student knows, that dissolving CO2 in water does create carbonic acid. Our oceans are showing signs of severe acidification, as in the bleaching of coral reefs and causing other ecosystem havocs. As the oceans are becoming more acidic, this is important, as they become more acidic, less oxygen is able to be dissolved in the water. I don't think the fishes of the sea are going to like that. Also, another difference we know, heat trapped gets dissolved in the ocean as well. While this heat transport can have a cooling effect, a slight cooling effect of the air, that energy is transferred to the ocean, and it will release itself at some other point into the atmosphere. In this diagram, we see a map of temperature change from 1993 to 2019. As you can see, the heat is being shuffled around, and it's clearly increasing. I would love to dive into atmospheric science with you, but I won't. Our Earth's atmosphere is amazing, as it contains oscillators that help distribute and in some cases may help dissipate some of the heat. Some of these oscillators are known as the El Niño Southern Oscillation, the Arctic Oscillation, and the North Atlantic Oscillator, to name a few. Anyone can visit the NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association website, and you can learn more about weather, and you can learn more about climate. What is extremely important to understand is that climate and weather are not the same thing at all. Climate is the study of changes in the atmosphere, including its relationship to the surface over a longer period. Weather, on the other hand, is simply the current meteorological activity of a very specific place and time. The heat that is being trapped is causing changes in our weather patterns. This is also factual and readily apparent as the western United States continues to experience 22 years of drought and an increase in the number of more powerful storms we've seen and the perturbations and precipitation patterns all over the United States. Ask any farmer, ask any grower of plants. So yes, CO2 is increasing, overall Earth temperature is increasing, and there are signs that the climate is adjusting along with it. I'm not going to give you predictions, as these vary to some degree. Climate prediction is getting better, but it takes a lot of serious study to understand the nuances therein. And this drives me crazy all the time. Most of the media is trash. Since we live in a world where sensationalism and not reality sells advertising revenue. That's the best way I can really technically describe it. There was a very important paper published, and it talked about the myth of the 1970s global cooling, and it was actually caused about by two things, and I really urge everybody to go and read this paper. This was published in 2008, but it actually gives a really good detailed description of what happened. If you remember, in the late 60s, we were talking about really aerosols. We were talking about CFCs and what might be happening to the atmosphere at that time. And it turned out that there was some data to suggest that aerosols do have a cooling effect on the atmosphere. However, over the long haul, that was shown repeatedly not to have any weird difference at all compared to the powers of carbon dioxide. But you can read more about that in that paper. What is more relevant and more important is to focus on what we know to be true. Carbon dioxide is increasing, the temperatures are increasing, and the oceans and the atmosphere are compensating in ways that are beyond our natural cycles. Some would have you believe that these are solely national level issues. Some others shrug and claim that there's nothing that can be done, since China or other industrialized nations will not follow suit with whatever the United States does. Maybe. In my mind, this issue is much more of a local matters issue than ever before. Think globally, act locally is a mantra of most Earth Day celebrations. So what can you do? You can reduce pollution as much as you reasonably can, recycle, reuse, but there's more. Do you really need to rid your yard of clover with all its nitrogen-fixating nodules? Where do you think excess fertilizer that was applied to your yard goes when it rains? Reduce your water footprint by re-examining the water used by your home. And above all, look for ways to reduce your carbon footprint. Do you really need to use a gas mower? I haven't in 10 years. Do you need to drive everywhere, or can you walk? Can you bike? Are you purchasing the best mileage you can get? Or are there alternative fuel vehicles that might be better? Do you promote mass transit? Have you considered solar for all your power needs? Even a small portion of your power needs. These are just a handful of ideas, but I hope you get the point. The climate is changing. Increasing levels of CO2 are the cause. Human activities are the cause of increasing levels of CO2, which is increasing the amount of heat trapped in our biosphere. And you can do something to help right here in our community, in your own yard, and in your own life choices. And that's a very local matter. Join us and everyone in the celebration of Earth Day and all of its causes. Even one change that you make can have an impact. Happy Earth Day, everybody. That fulfills my comments for this discussion. Are there any other discussion items for this resolution? Okay, seeing none. Jeremy, can you please call the roll?
Bowers,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Angelou.
Yes.
Thank you. Very good resolution, and I commend everybody at this dais to actually coming together to do that. Thank you. Item F, ordinances for introduction and first reading. We have two. I will read these just simply by title into the record. Ordinance 17-2022, an ordinance authorizing a supplemental appropriation, MORPC intern. And then we also have ordinance 18-2022, an ordinance to accept the donation of land from Value Recovery Group to LLC. Item G, ordinances for second reading and adoption. Ordinance 16-2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with Strauver Paving Company Incorporated for the 2022 residential street program, ST-1090. Forgive me. Do I have a first for this, the adoption of this ordinance?
So moved.
First by Mr. Schnetzer. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Angelou. Any discussion? Okay, Jeremy, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. President?
Please.
Thank you. Let's see, we have our city administration here, engineer, Mr. Moorhead, and our Director of Public Service, Mr. Crawford. I had a couple of follow-up questions that I'd received from some constituents who are unable to be here, and if it's appropriate to indulge me for just a moment?
Discussion, yes.
Is it? So, first, let me say, just thank you for answering all the questions that I know I've sent your way on this matter. For the record, would you be able to just sort of tell us what the inspection process looks like when a constituent has raised a concern about the honeycombing? I know we've touched base about this. And then, I guess, generally, when a concern is raised by a constituent, you are going out and checking those, or you or your team are going out and checking those?
Yeah, Mr. Weaver, the City of Gahanna employs 2 full-time project inspectors, and during the summer months, their primary responsibility is to follow through the construction process of our street program, observe the day-to-day activities that are taking place there, note it, and report back what they find to Mr. Jason Collins, who is our project administrator, and myself, who oversee the work being done in the field. Whenever we receive a report from a resident or anyone involved who's observed something in the field, we immediately take that in, process it, and then dispatch one of our inspectors, myself or Mr. Collins, to the field, typically to meet with that resident, or if they're unavailable, at a minimum, observe the concern that they've raised. Investigate it, see if there's cause for concern. If there is, we then take those concerns back to the contractor, who in this case would be Strauser Paving, and seek a remedy from them.
And then just as a follow-up and a more specific sort of circumstance, you shared with me, but I think it's helpful for others, that it is possible, when that dirt gets backfilled on the backside of the curb, forgive me for not knowing the proper term there, but oftentimes you do go in and inspect and scrape that dirt back before going and refilling. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I have a photograph, if I can share, of kind of the situation we're describing here, to help clarify for everyone else in the public possibly of what exactly honeycombing is. I gave an admittedly miserable description of that at one of our committee meetings, and I have a picture, which is hopefully a better tale. So what you can see here is the back of a curb that was poured as we'll call a spot repair during our street program, meaning that we excavated a section of curb that had been failing and then re-poured just a small section of it, in this case about 10 feet. And when the form work is placed, so concrete being a liquid mass, when it's placed, has to be contained. And on the back side of this curb, a wooden board is placed as the form to contain it. Once the concrete has cured enough to no longer need that support, they remove the form. And that is what you see here, is immediately following the removal of that form. And I'll see if I can zoom in on this a bit for everyone's benefit. And what you can see here is the condition known as honeycombing. This occurs when the fine mortar and the fine sand within the concrete mix does not fully press up against the form. And that is a common occurrence in concrete, especially where you don't have a finished surface. You'll note that the top of this curb looks like every other concrete you've walked across. It's smoothed out, it's been broomed, and looks fine. The condition here is honeycombing. And the question Mr. Weaver asked is it possible that this form gets removed and the condition you're seeing does not get observed by an inspector? And the answer is yes. That is possible. We do not have inspectors who are present during every phase of construction at every single site around the city, but they do their best to be there during those phases actively throughout the days, so that they do observe this condition routinely. but they don't see it all the time. So when we find these conditions, we do seek that that curb gets removed and replaced, and specifically the area that I'll zoom in on here, where you don't really have honeycombing, which is an acceptable condition in many cases, but you have a void where the concrete itself was not fully pushed or worked into the forms. And so that could jeopardize the long-term durability of that curb. And in those cases, we seek for the curb's removal. If we have a report that this happened and we weren't present, we will go back and ask the contractors to expose that. We may do it ourselves if we happen to be there and have a shovel handy, but we will also require that the contractor expose the work so that we can complete an inspection before it gets backfilled. That was a long roundabout answer to your question, but hopefully it answered your question.
That's what I was looking for. I wanted to know more about curbs than I've ever wanted to know. And I think now my colleagues do too.
City Council.
Yeah.
Learned a lot.
And then just lastly, the city administration is comfortable with the work that Strasser has previously provided to the city, and it is your recommendation that we move forward.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Just to add on to what he says, the water, the vacancies are where the water will get in, and then it will freeze and thaw in the holes, and that's what causes it. It's just not the hole itself, it's what it allows to get underneath the surface of the curb.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Angelou,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance passes. And we look forward to more pretty streets. Item H, our ordinances for introduction, waiver, and emergency adoption. We have two, and I'll read the title of both into the record, and then Miranda, if you could give us a summary of both, that would be really appreciated. What happened here is that this didn't come through the committee of the whole process, but we knew about it, and it was being deliberated with the different bargaining units. Ordinance 19-2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a bargaining unit agreement for the Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council, Inc., for the period of January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2024, waiving second reading and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
That's probably proper. It is the first by Ms. Angelou. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Schnetzer. Discussion. Okay, Miranda.
Thank you. I'm presenting this on behalf of the City Administration and the Division of Police. We are respectfully requesting authorization for the mayor to sign the FOP OLC Successor Collective Bargaining Agreement for the years 2022 through 2024. The city and the FOP OLC union reached a tentative agreement recently, and that bargaining unit did vote in favor of adopting the successor agreement. The reason for the waiver and emergency is for a couple reasons. One is so that the new contract did start on January 1, 2022, if passed. So it's the request for a waiver and emergency is so that we can issue the back pay to our 911 dispatchers, and in order for us to meet CERB filing deadlines as required by state law. On my amended report has the different article changes. I'll just highlight a couple of the big ones. One is the title change from 911 dispatcher to communications technicians 1 and 2. The internal investigations, citizens now have 90 days to file a complaint against our dispatchers. Probationary periods continue for 1 year following training. Wage adjustments to step 1 and 2 to be more competitive with the market, in addition to a 3.25% pay increase in years 2022, 2023, and 2024. And the establishment that the dispatchers or communications technicians will move to the high deductible health plan in 2023 and years thereafter.
Okay, communications technicians one, I'm going to have a hard time getting used to that. Any other discussions about this particular ordinance 19-2022?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
Director Vollmer, could you summarize the new financial obligations to the city as a result of this contract?
Sure. The compensation, would you like me to repeat it? Or
No, you can summarize, summarize the financial obligations, the new financial obligations to the city.
one second. I have to get my computer to let you know what the overall impact is.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bowers? I have the information from Joanne, but I can't find it right now. It's in my email somewhere, and did I forward it to you? I don't have it. I don't know where it's at.
Ms. Bowers, what were you looking for specifically? All of the raises or all of the information that we have on this?
Well, there is increased compensation. I understand that there is an annual service credit. There is a signing bonus stipend, and there will be HSA contributions. So in addition to all of those items, I guess what I was looking for was clarity, and I wanted to make sure that we were clear on articulating those cost items, those line items, but also the overall net change, I think, is something that
Should be in here at some point.
Executive session flyer.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not going to be able to find it. I can't find it in my email.
Okay, can she email that
Pages on the one thing. Mr.
to
Hurst.
all of us?
I mean, we're voting on it tonight. If we want to put this at the end of the agenda, maybe table, I guess I could move to table this to the end of the agenda, see if we can locate that, and then come.
Is your vote predicated on the value?
I think that it's an important part of the discussion, but I would like to have that information in the record prior to the vote.
We have a number of pages here on I legislate, but that's more of a vigil. I think we've had this discussion in executive thing. So, I mean, we seem to have known it then, but it's been a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, I didn't mean to catch you off guard. That was not my intent.
We've reached out to Director Burry. Director Burry is currently pulling that, and we'll email that to Director Volmer shortly.
Okay, thank you.
You might be at the end of this.
Well, okay, so let's go ahead and move to item I, and then we'll come back to item H.
There is a spot here of compensation on Article 20, wages. Is that part of it there? It's on page 22.
Do we need a formal roll in order to?
Yeah, you want me to move to table this?
Were there other questions that you had?
Yeah, yeah.
Try another one. Maybe.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to distract the director if she was trying to get that
Well,
information.
try another one, maybe we can find it.
Throw
here.
another one out there. This is just mostly to clarify, and I think, I'm certain that this is a softball question. I swear I'm not trying to make anything more difficult than it needs to be. The city does not have, the city does not have an obligation after December of 2024 to fund HSAs under this contract, correct?
No, that is incorrect.
Okay, could you explain?
Yeah, so for 2023 and 2024, the city agreed with the union to pay $2,000 for a single plan and $4,000 for the high deduct into the HSA for all other plans. Beyond 2024, the language states that the city will fund half the deductible or whatever other city employees are getting, the greater of that. So if the unclassified gets 2 and 4, that's more than half the deductible, then that's what the OLC would get as well. The deductibles for the health plan are $3,000 for single and $6,000 for all other plans.
So if this contract, though, expires on 12/31 of 2024, that clause would still be enforceable somehow?
That clause would have to be negotiated in the next successor collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, so even though there's an expectation that the city would contribute to HSAs, short of the next contract affirming that, there is no obligation to the city?
It has to be negotiated. But that language, traditionally in collective bargaining agreements, once the language is agreed to in the contract, it continues forward for the successor agreements, specifically with economics.
Okay, okay. I just want to thank Director Vollmer for updating the report to make sure that we had all of the financial impact considered here this afternoon, and providing the side letter as well.
The increase in costs for this OLC contract, OLC wages, including service credit, is $145,000. The difference in health insurance savings is $7,000 per year, for a total of $131,000.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I just have a few comments then after, if there's no other questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank and recognize the hardworking union members and the union leadership for coming to the table to negotiate this contract, and also to recognize the team from the administration for your hard work on this as well. Ultimately, it's no secret that I'm concerned at the expansion of high deductible health insurance for our first responders. While I understand the appeal, premium expenses are lower for both workers and the employer, and the portability of HSAs. These plans put at risk the health of our employees. In a 2019 article from the Business Journal for the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, the authors noted that big companies J.P. Morgan Chase and CVS have cut back high deductible plans because they became aware that workers had stopped filling critical prescriptions and not getting important health care due to the costs. The experts in the article cited that they agreed that the costs were not significantly reduced with these plans, and they come with shifting costs to employees and potentially putting their health at stake. High deductible plans have different impacts on whether the employee is younger and healthy, or alternatively, if they or a family member are older or have chronic health conditions. Our first responders deserve to have good quality health insurance, not just when they are healthy, but if they or their loved ones have some major medical event. I respect the vote of the union members, and I'm ultimately glad that the city will be contributing significantly to the HSAs of our employees. The increased compensation for our dispatchers is great to see, as well as the expanded complaint reporting and discipline record retention. Overall, I'm optimistic that the contract will create a good working environment for our dispatchers, our communications workers, and ensure the health, safety, and welfare of those living and working here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy, sorry, are there any other additional comments? Jeremy, please call the roll.
Angelou,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Padova.
Yes.
Thank you. Hopefully, the second item, Miranda, will be a little bit easier. 20-2022, an ordinance authorizing a supplemental appropriation for dispatch wages, waiving second reading and declaring emergency. Do I have a first?
So moved, Mr. President.
First by Mr. Schnetzer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Angelou. Discussion. Any discussion?
I have a question. I don't see the point of having a waiver of second and emergency, because we obviously have appropriated enough money for the whole year for this line item, and we need a supplemental because of the contract increase, but this is only April, so there's got to be plenty of money to pay and allow this to go through the regular process, correct?
There is sufficient funding that has been appropriated. It will run out without this supplemental.
Correct, but not, I mean, it wouldn't run out till the end of the year, so if we allowed to go through the regular legislative process without the waiver and the emergency, I mean, we'll still have plenty of money until that happens, correct? Right?
Correct. It's the administration's, I checked with the Department of Finance, that we do it all together with the implementation of the contract so we can keep track of all the parts and pieces at one time.
But we're still voting on it at the same, I don't understand what difference that makes. I mean, we're still voting on it at the same time, the same meeting. So I would request that that be removed, the waiver and emergency be removed.
Nancy, will you state it as a motion?
Sure, I make a motion that we remove the waiver of second and the declaring of emergency from ordinance 0020-2022, only because I don't see the need for it. I mean, I'm fine with implementing the ordinance, I just don't see the need for waiver of second and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. We have a motion before us. That was so stated. Is there first?
She's the first.
Oh, she's the first. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a second by Ms. Bowers. Any discussion on Ms. McGregor's motion?
Just a clarifying question, Mr. President. So does that mean this ordinance would then have to come back?
No.
No.
Well,
If we're
it
taking
would
away.
definitely have to come back. It would be on a second reading later. Yeah.
I guess that's true, it would be, this would be technically first reading.
Right. So it's a delay of what, 2 weeks?
Right, so then I guess my question would then be for Director Vollmer, if you could explain the administration's preference of implementing the two ordinances at the same time. I'm sure there's probably some feasibility or ease with doing both at the same time, I guess would be my clarification I'd be looking for.
It is for an administrative reason to ease the burden on the Department of Finance and Department of HR to implement this contract. In addition, we need to ensure that we have proper funding when we file this contract with CERB, and as it stands, if it were not to be passed with the contract, we wouldn't be able to show proper appropriations to implement the contract in full until that supplemental was approved, and we are working short on a 30-day timeline that already started to file this contract with CERB.
I'm sorry, but for the record, can you tell us, explain what CERB is?
Yes, CERB is the state's Office of Collective Bargaining. They handle all issues surrounding collective bargaining, negotiations, fact-finding, conciliation. It's required by state law that we file annual reports with CERB in addition to any successor collective bargaining agreements. It's codified in state code that we have 30 days from certain actions to file this. The city has those responsibilities, not the labor union, to file that contract with CERB. That report requires a multi-page summary that has to be filled out by the HR team, demonstrating what the new financial burdens are on the city, also showing what the different health insurance is, because CERB compiles different reports statewide on unions across the state.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Bowers?
I was just trying to think through this. Would it ease the burden on the administration, on the finance department if we waived second reading but didn't waive emergency? Is that something that would be?
There's supplementals go into effect right away, so there is no 30-day wait on supplementals.
So there's no need for an emergency on this anyway?
Correct.
Oh, all right.
Mr. Snetzer?
Okay.
Well, I think we just got our answer there. But I was going to ask Director Vollmer if, in that report, so that, again, the basis for the request is the administrative filing of the report. Does the report also include reference to the appropriation and those dollars that are being requested?
I believe so.
Okay.
So do I withdraw my motion then?
You can.
I withdraw my motion. The main thing was the emergency. That was my thing, so I'm okay with waiver second.
Okay, thank you. So the motion has been withdrawn from its office.
Wait.
Point of order, the second has to be withdrawn first. And
Okay,
then
you
the
have to
motion.
withdraw first.
I'll withdraw my second of your motion.
Okay, and I will withdraw my motion. Thank you.
We have to have a motion on that you can do it. Just want to keep it going.
Okay, so back to the original ordinance 2022. It's been first and seconded. Any other additional discussion on this
Let's
ordinance?
hope not. We have
Jeremy,
people
please call
that
the
want
roll.
to work for us.
Thank you for explaining that, Miranda.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Angelou,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner.
Yes. Good.
Right along.
Thank you so much. Item I, correspondence and actions. Mr. Clerk?
I don't have anything this evening.
Thank you. Council colleagues, do we have anything? Okay, representatives, item J, Community Improvement Corporation. We didn't have a meeting, but when is our
I
next?
believe it's tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. in the committee room.
You'll have a report next time.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Ms. Angelou.
Thank you. Last Thursday was our last meeting that with me at least, as the chair. We started out with the song of the month being I Did It My Way. And we had a wonderful Delaware County Chief Deputy Keith Cox with a therapy dog named Otto, who was there for all of our members to come, that they could see this beautiful dog. And he was being trained, and his name was Otto, and he was named after one of the deputies that had been killed. So it was just a beautiful thing, and then they both came up, the dog and the deputy sheriff, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So a number of things happened. This particular, in April is our time that we do elections. And of course, let me find where I am here now. I'll start with number one. We thanked everybody for attending the State of the Region event. We had over 800 community leaders joining us as we highlighted the Central Ohio and its future. And then we are looking ahead to next year for the State of the Region, and it will be April 18th, 2023. And with that, we went to the point where we were having the April's board meeting with MORPC elections. The elections were all agreed to, and indeed, we have leadership of new MORPC as Chair Eric Janis. Through his leadership of Franklin County and other public service roles during his career, he will make a wonderful leader. Eric is dedicated to making Central Ohio a better place. Congratulations also to Chris Amorose Grooms from Dublin as vice chair and Michelle Crandall Hilliard as secretary. And of course, we also had executive committee people. I was reelected for a year for the elected official, or for the executive commission. Michelle Crandall had, and Franklin Chrisman and Chris Amorose Grooms, Greg Listini, David Scheffler, Kim Maggard, Rory McGinnis, and Joe Stefanoff. We have all been renewed for another year. And Chris Amorose Grooms also chaired the nominating committee as vice chair this time. And I was given some thanks for what I did. I was able to finish my story of a decade and being with MORPC, and I am now the past chair of that particular organization. Delaware City Manager Tom Homan spoke as one of the co-chairs for the ICMA annual conference, which brings in 4,000 to 5,000 people This will be in September. They'll be coming to Columbus and Franklin County. It's September 17th to the 21st, and the sponsorships are spreading, and spreading out the word on this is very important. Many things are going to be going into this with a convention that size. It might be the biggest one that's ever been here in Columbus. MORPC is a resource for navigating the impacts and opportunities related to the Intel project, as well as the bipartisan infrastructure law bill that's called Bill. Interesting. Acronyms are the worst things in the entire world. You have no idea what they're talking about when it's going on, and it takes forever to learn them all. So here we go, which is we also have Link Us Mobility Initiative, which is a transformative plan for mobility and prosperity. It's over $8 billion of investment in mass transit mobility, and more are proposed for the region through 2050. So we're going far ahead. That's going to be a huge thing, and it's going to be coming out. The Link Us Mobility Initiative is probably going to take, well, for sure it's going to take some sort of a tax coming up very soon, I believe. Central Ohio Rural Planning Commission, Corpo, recently completed its drafting planning work program and was notified by ODOT that rural transportation planning organizations will receive additional state-wide planning dollars. Corpo recently completed its capital fund cycle, committing about $900,000 to 6 projects. The Regional Data Advisory Committee was there, and RDAC reported highlighting Argus Urban 3D Mapping Project of Franklin County, also used as a pilot project for Link Us transit stations. Discussion also continues on the development of regional fiber network. You can also save the date for Data Day, September 15th, an event with a keynote speaker and breakout sessions on that. Regional Policy Roundtable, the update focused on recent state reappropriations to ensure previously dedicated projects could continue legislation to fund projects related to Intel especially, member-directed spending at the federal level, and distracted driving legislation. We also heard the latest on the upcoming primary and redistricting, the state capital budget, and updates on the region's defense assets. The Metropolitan Planning Organization for RAISE grant, that's 4 of RAISE grants. Applications for our region were recently submitted for Williams Road in Columbus, the Link Us Mobility Initiative, multimodal planning related to Intel, and Franklin County trails. A status update was provided on MORPC's 24 to 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and MORPC has its draft 2023 planning work program prepared, which includes more than $700,000 over last year. The PWP will be considered at the May Commission meeting. A resolution was passed as a part of the Commission's consent agenda to increase the MORPC attributable funding for the US 33 161 Post Road interchange project due to increasing costs. And that's all what's happening on a lot of things, a lot of increasing costs. Sustainability Advisory Committee, MORPC partnered with Ohio State University City and Regional Planning Program and Sustainability Institute to provide 3 free technical assistance to MORPC's Sustainable 2050 communities. Gahanna, one of them right there, Somerset, Reynoldsburg, Bexley will participate this fall. The updated also highlighted Celebrate Trails Day, April 23rd, and Air Quality Awareness Week, which is big for us because we do that. And we have Gahanna Mayor Lori Jadwin is welcomed as the new vice chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. So we're happy to have you do that. And we know we're going to get to be, what, gold, platinum, all those things?
We're going. Yep,
Okay,
we are.
Okay, We're doing all that, yeah, okay, just so we get that going. New economic partnerships in college towns, collaborations to survive and thrive. There's April 26th at 10 to 12:55 at Granville Inn, which is right next to Denison. The forum will focus on economic partnerships in college towns in central Ohio. MORPC Board member lunch on Rapid 5, the book. If you haven't seen the book, I can let you see it. This is mine now, but you can see it too. I can bring you more if you want one of your own. You have yours over there? I bought him.
Just see it.
Yeah. Okay, you've got to see it. Now, if anybody would like one of these, I can get them for you. So if you just let me know, I can make sure that we have them for the next month. Got to have fun up here, guys. You can't just always be doing things that aren't much fun. We can sing too.
No.
So that's for a Rapid 5, and it's going to be before lunch at the next one. That should be a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Inclusion, beyond inclusion, building a community of belonging, 10 a.m. to 12 on p.m. May 24th at MORPC. That will be the YMC, and MORPC members will receive a discounted rate to this diversity, equity, and inclusion session. We want to say a few notes here. Niall Jurist, I think I told you last time, we received an outstanding diversity champion by the Columbus Business First, and she's doing just a great job there. And MORPC recently received the Excellence in Financial Reporting Award for the Government Finance Officers Association for the 33rd year. Thanks to the finance team of hard work for that. As MORPC Senior Director of Government Affairs and Community Relations, Joe Garrity was recognized as one of the Columbus Business First 40 Under 40 honorees. And with that, I was said goodbye as the chair of MORPC, and at this point, I was, it was just a wonderful, wonderful day for me, and I feel very loved and respected. Sometimes you have to have that, and I feel that when I'm feeling. Now, I did bring up my songs of the month as we were, as I was handing out things to the new director. I know he was probably just dying to have this, so I'm going to be doing about 160 different songs of the month that they can have if he chooses to do it. This is my deal. So, anyway, and I because life is a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I gave each one of our new people there, in terms of their new seats, a box of chocolates, and they don't know what they're going to get. So hopefully we will continue to grow. We also have the NARC convention in June, which is going to be wonderful, and we're going to throw out the first pitch at the one of these days in this particular regional conference. We hope to take them all to the Huntington, and Chris at Amorous Grooms is going to throw out the pitch. I think she's going to have a strike because she's practiced last year and couldn't do it because we had a rain. So she gets to do it again, and she has this guy who's like he's a baseball player or something that's been teaching her. Of course, I also had a strike when I threw mine out, but she's probably going to be a little closer, less than that. So anyway, with that, I want to say I have had the most wonderful experience of my life being a part of the chair of MORPC and working with wonderful people there. And I can tell you that it is a place that there's nothing better. And I have 2 more years. I will be the past chair, and I get to be on the executive committee for that. And with that, I'll say thank you for your time.
Thank you. Convention and Visitors Bureau, Ms. Padova.
Thank you. Volunteers are still needed for the Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival. You can sign up at creeksidebluesandjazz.com on the website. Also, this year marks the 50th anniversary for being the herb capital of Ohio. So commemorative T-shirts are available for purchase at the Herb Center. And that is all for me.
Thank you. School Board, Ms. Bowers.
Yes, a couple items. The application packet was submitted earlier this month to the Planning Department for the high school project. That will come, those items will come forward on a future Planning Commission agenda. We wait with bated breath to see how many variances are actually in that packet, so we'll find out.
Not one.
The superintendent search is underway. Finalists are expected to be selected by the end of the month. There will be a community engagement phase, and the final selection is expected to be made in the first half of May. And tonight was a community conversation on diversity and inclusion at the high school, and I will look forward to hearing some takeaways from that discussion.
Thank you. Item K, official reports. Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I actually just have some information and updates on some things happening within the city. But first of all, since I was not able to be here 2 weeks ago, I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of those who attended our State of the City event a few weeks ago. It was wonderful to see so many people there, and it's always energizing to be able to engage with our residents and business owners and our partners, stakeholders who were there as well. Thank you to those council members who were able to be present for that evening. It was wonderful to have you there as a show of support and also to share in the work that we were able to share with our community, as well as to the many local nonprofit and service organizations that were there manning informational tables, and to have them participate is always important because it truly reflects our community. And of course, the restaurants that donated all of the delicious food that we had there. We are finalizing an overall video recap that we will be able to put up on our YouTube channel and up on our website so that the people who were not able to be there can view that and see the same information that was shared that night. We expect that to be finalized and up available by the end of this month. Just a quick update on the 2021 sidewalk program. Our team right now is in the process of reviewing the inspection data and compiling construction estimates for the properties that are within the 2021 program. It's about 300 properties, you might recall that. The next step legislatively for that will be bringing forward a resolution of necessity for council that will include all of that estimate number so that that can then authorize and set the assessments to be issued. Once the resolution of necessity is adopted by council, we will then send out a maintenance notification letter to the properties impacted within that sidewalk program area. We expect the resolution of necessity to be brought forward to you, if I remember, the first committee of the whole meeting in May, and then the maintenance notification letters would go out to residents within that program area the following week, which would then be the week of May 16th. So just to keep you updated on where we are with that program. Also, a few weeks ago, Director Crawford reported that our landscaping company, Ameriscapes, had notified us that they were going out of business, and we were trying to hurriedly find another company, at least to help us in the interim period with some immediate trimming and cutting that needed to be done. Unfortunately, much like the rest of the country right now, staffing shortages really have gotten in the way, and there's really not a company that said that they could step up and help us on an immediate need. So we have, I think bids were opened Friday, so we should have another go through that process and have a company engaged, and at least to bring forward, which we plan to present at next week's committee of the whole meeting, that will be coming forward with a waiver in emergency so that they can begin doing their trimming and cutting work at least the second week of May. In the meantime, you might see some of the grass looking a little bit taller than it usually does. Our crews are doing the best that they can to fill in those gaps in addition to their regular workload. But if you should receive some comments or hear some comments, please assure everyone our staff's doing the best they can. We are just transitioning to a new company, and we appreciate everybody's patience and understanding in that regard. This Wednesday, Make Gahanna Yours is having their last winter farmers market of the season at the Gahanna Sanctuary from 4 to 7 p.m. And then I think they take the month of May off. Their first summer market will be in June, and they will be, again, staying on Wednesday nights. They will be down in the city lot. So our public service team and Parks and Rec team are supporting them and trying to make that happen for them. And that'll really, I think, create a nice evening at Creekside, because Visit Gahanna and the Creekside District Alliance are bringing back midweek at the creek. So we'll have midweek at the creek and then the farmers market all at the same time happening down in the Creekside District, which should make for a great environment for folks down there. Griniversary, as you may have heard, and I'm sure Councilwoman Padova has. I know she's probably talked a lot about that as well. But Grin is celebrating their 50th year of service to our Gahanna community. To recognize their milestone, you might have seen on social media, it reached out to various organizations throughout the city on a monthly basis for a challenge, donation challenge. The City of Gahanna's month is April. So our city team right now has been challenged to donate items. We are collecting tomato sauce, tomato paste, diced tomatoes, spaghetti sauce, pasta, canned fruit. Council, if you would like to donate anything, you could donate that as part of our city contribution. I have issued a challenge to the Gahanna community to meet or exceed the collective donations of our team here at the city. This Saturday, Grin will be out in the parking lot here at City Hall as part of our Shred and Recycle event. They will be receiving donations, and we will have set up all of the donations that our city team has collected. So we're challenging the community to also come and bring donations to meet or exceed the collective items that our city team members are contributing. Again, the Shred It and Recycle event is this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., just to repeat that. If people want information on what will and will not be accepted for that event, you can get that at gahanna.gov. Right on the homepage, there's a little news article. Just click on that, and it'll take you to a page. It is an there are electronics that will be received for that. We get that question a lot. But that gives you a whole list of what can and cannot be submitted that day. Make Gahanna Yours also on Saturday for Earth Day celebration is hosting a litter pickup event around the city of Gahanna. They're still looking for volunteers. That also runs from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and you can sign up to volunteer with them at makegahannayours.com. And finally, just to repeat an announcement from last week, thanks to our grant from SWACO, we are getting ready to launch our very first food waste program, which will make it easier for residents to collect food scraps that can be dropped off at a composting location. That location will be at Friendship Park, right out where the trash bin currently is. That has been widened to allow for the compost bins as well. The program is free, but registration is required, so we are asking residents to register for that program. The first 100 Gahanna households that register will receive a free 5-gallon compostable bucket that they can use to collect and transport their food waste to the bin. They're all stacked up in the receptionist area up there, so they are here on site, and those will be available for pickup this Saturday during the Shred and Recycle event. And the registration link for that as well can be found on gahanna.gov. So we're excited to get that program rolling in conjunction with SWACO and the Save More Than Food campaign, which all ties in very nicely with Earth Day, Councilman Renner. So thank you for your presentation earlier. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
Mayor, where, is it going to be here, the
The
shredder?
Shred and Recycle event will be right here in the City
Okay.
Hall parking lot,
Thanks.
yes.
I have nothing to add.
All right, thank you. Item L, council comment. Ms. Angelou.
Well, I hope everybody had a happy Easter, and I hope that we can have sunshine and not snow tomorrow. It's supposed to snow tomorrow. Anyway, I just wish everybody just a wonderful way of working together so that we can figure out things that need to be done. And I think Easter is a time that kind of puts you into that kind of feel that, gee, we're going to have a little better ability to be able to do things because it's going to be so beautiful for the rest of the summer and all those things. And you kind of hope that that will draw us together as well. When we work together, we work better. So I would like to tell everybody that right now. That's it.
Thank you.
And if you want one of these books, I can get it.
Ms. McGregor.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would just like to thank the Harshaw and Whiting families for being here this evening. Thanks to the mayor for her proclamations in recognizing Autism Acceptance Month and National Infertility Awareness Week, issues that touch more families than I think we know, including yours truly. I'd like to thank Representative Lightbody for being here as well, and thank her for her leadership and for the update. Thanks to our other guests. I'd like to congratulate my colleague, Ms. Angelou, on her tenure at MORPC as chair and moving to chair emeritus. Just congratulations and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
And then I'd lastly like to thank President Renner for the presentation and council for the resolution. I would just like to, I am not a scientist, not a physicist, not a chemist, but I share my colleagues' belief that the fact that climate change is real and we all have a part to play. And I know I have more to do on my own and would encourage everybody else to do what they can. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Padova.
First, I'd like to thank you, President Renner, for your presentation tonight. It was very good and definitely inspired me to try and do a little bit better myself as well. This week is Volunteer Appreciation Week, and I just wanted to give a shout out to all the organizations and nonprofits here in Gahanna that really rely on the amazing volunteers that we have here in our community. I've seen it a lot firsthand at Grin, but also with the farmers markets and everything that we have going on in our community. It couldn't be done without the volunteers who give their time. So huge thank you to all the people volunteering to make our community great.
Thank you. Mr. Snutzer.
Nothing to add, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bowers?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for your presentation tonight and helping us better understand a little bit about the carbon cycle and how it can be impacted by local action. Thank you to Representative Lightbody for attending tonight and also sharing with us some of the important work that you are doing at the State House, including your efforts to fight clean water. I'm particularly interested in the bill that you introduced to ban the use of brine as a de-icer from oil and gas wells because of its toxicity and the harm it causes to surface water and vegetation. So thank you for your work on that. Thank you to the guests who came tonight. I know we had some students who were attending, and you guys stuck it out. So thanks for being here. It's always good to see students and guests here attending. On the note of what's going on at the House, I just want to touch on, because this is something that touched my life this week, House Bill 468 is working on creating a 3-digit suicide prevention hotline. Instead of the traditional 800 number, the legislature is working on rolling out 988, which would be created as a result of federal legislation requiring a 3-digit suicide prevention hotline. So I support that. I hope you join me in supporting that, and I certainly hope to see that pass. It seems like it's gotten stalled up in committee a little bit, but hopefully it moves forward, because anything that we can do to reduce the impact of suicide attempts and mental health crisis is important and critical to our community. Finally, I'm excited for this Saturday. We've got a lot going on here in Gahanna, the shredding and recycling event, the Grin donation drive, and Make Gahanna Yours is hosting its first litter cleanup of the year, starting at 9 a.m. at Friendship Park. So start there or start here, and then trade off, and we'll have a busy day of doing good things to reduce our carbon footprint here in Gahanna. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. I definitely want to extend my thanks to Representative Lightbody for giving us an update about the, especially of the environmental stuff that you're doing. I know very much about brine, and it intersects my professional life at the county. And the forever chemicals, yeah, we're watching that carefully, as I know probably Grant is watching it as well. Understanding as a utility and a water provider, what must we else do about that in terms of monitoring and reporting? I definitely want to also, I got a chance to watch last Monday evening's the presentation by the police department, but that's probably one of the best presentations that was done. And my hat's off to Lieutenant Moffett and Lieutenant Akers of the Highway Patrol Department, and of course to Chief Spence, who came in and sort of wrapped everything up. I thought that they did a superb job in introducing, talking about distracted driving, but also putting in setting it as a higher level, about safe driving and risky behaviors. That is appropriate, that we need to tackle and head on. And I think Lieutenant Moffett got off, he started talking about the reality. Here we go again about we need to have a discussion, but Lieutenant Moffett actually mentioned about the environment that that police officers are sensing from some segments of the community, and maybe that's actually delaying and affecting. And so I thought Lieutenant Moffett actually did a superb job talking, actually introducing that subject, and then talking and reminding everybody that the police force is a set of professionals and they are still going to do their job, but they're aware. So I thought it was, again, very good job. And then finally, I wanted to say thank you to the mayor and her staff for putting on the Earth Day and the Shred It and all the little details that go with that. And I am really looking forward to learning more about Savor Food. So I'm going to try to get one of those bins. And that's all I got. We do have an executive session. There is no legislation coming back out of this. But we are going to go into executive session under authority of Section 5.40A of the Council Rules of Procedure to consider the appointment of a public employee or official. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Have a first by Mr. Weaver. Have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion? Jeremy, can you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Angelou,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Schnetzer.
Yes.
Thank you. I assume that we'll meet, it's just council, and we'll meet in the law library. And everybody else, have a very good evening.